Nikki, our guest for today about engagement. Just a short introduction first. Nikki is MCI's Global Vice President of Engagement for Associations and Communities, and she oversees MCI regional hubs in Europe, Middle East, Asia, and North and Latin America, as well as various national offices to help associations and communities solve their pain points and optimize growth and engagement with their wider community and ecosystems. She has served as executive director for many different associations, under which the European Society of Association Executives. Nikki, welcome to our CONECTAA Talks about engagement. I was just thinking, I think this is actually your first presentation in Brazil, is that correct?
Yeah, I think so, Gina. Good morning to you all. Very happy to be with you. The other side of the world and in very warm temperatures. I'm in Europe at the moment and it's very warm, and I understand it's unseasonably cold with all of you in Brazil. So I hope to bring some warmth to you today.
Thank you, Nikki. Within your title, you have engagement, so I guess no one better than you to have within our CONECTAA Talks today. To kick off, what is a key trend facing associations that you can share with us specifically to this topic?
Well, Gina, for me, it's very simple. It's what I call 365 engagement. And by that, I mean 365 days of the year. So annual engagement. And, you know, many associations in the past have really focused on a physical meeting, which is maybe 2 or 3 days. And that's where most of the engagement has happened. But in the last 18 months, that's been completely changed, which I believe is very positive for associations. So the trend 365 engagement is all about both engaging with your members and your customers and your community and facilitating that engagement, not only offline for 2 or 3 days at a physical meeting, but online. And online allows for that to happen 365 days of the year. So think of it as 365 engagement.
And in that sense, what do you see as the greatest changes that association professionals will need to deal with, whether they are, or the association in general will need to deal with? Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've lived through 18 months of massive global change, socially, economically, from a health point of view, but fundamentally from the way we work as associations. And I'm a firm believer that what we knew in the past, as in very large meetings, you know, 16,000 people, I don't believe that that's coming back anytime soon. So there are a number of associations that keep saying to us, oh, I just want it to get back to normal. I just want it to go back the way it was. But the way it was has changed. And I believe that associations need to consider that those big meetings have to be different. They'll be smaller, they'll be more intimate. The experience has to be different. It's more what I would call a VIP experience. People have had the luxury for 18 months, our members and our customers, to be able to engage with us and benefit from all of our content online. So content is no longer the only draw of a face-to-face meeting. There has to be something that makes the time, the money, the effort to travel worthwhile. And that, to me, is more about intimate, sort of niche, smaller meetings. It's likely to be more either national or regional. I don't think we're going to have very large international congresses coming back anytime soon.
Interesting. And with those changes for the association, how do you see that impacting the association professionals, whether they are staff, so paid for, or whether they are the presidents, the board, the volunteer leadership? How do you see them prepare for the future?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question, because as I said, I hear even professional staff in, associations in Europe and associations in America saying, oh, we just want it to go back to the way it was. We're opening up face-to-face meetings, we're going back to normal. And to me, that is burying your head in the sand as a professional or an association professional or a board member and leader. We have to look at doing things differently. It's not going to go back to the way it was. So as leaders and as staff, we have to engage new ways of working, new ways of engaging like we have been doing, like we're doing today. Isn't this wonderful? I'm sitting in Greece, you're all the way down in Latin America. I didn't have to get on a plane. And for an hour, we can have a very intimate conversation. So it's very important for staff and leaders to recognize that we aren't going back to normal. Normal is now different. It's a new normal. And we need to lead our associations to adapt to new ways of working, new ways of engaging.
It's scary sometimes, right? These new ways of engaging. Any tips in that sense, in how professionals trying to drive their association, how they can take, is it risk-taking, or how can they prepare themselves for that?
Well, a lot of it is technology. Technology can facilitate many of these things, as we are witnessing today. But technology is the tool. Technology is the means. It's the strategy. It's the thinking that the board and the staff need to undertake. And, looking at tomorrow, today, we can't wait and see. And there's so much discussion about whether next year there will be face-to-face meetings. So the opportunity is, yes, we may have some face-to-face meetings, but let's ensure that what we're doing here and the way we engage virtually with our communities continues to offer value to the people we want to attract. So I believe that, the association staff and leaders need to be open to that change. It's different, but that requires an open agility, think about things differently.
We've spoken about engagement in many of your answers. Engagement was in there, but if we go back to the basics, how would you define engagement? Because everybody speaks about it. It's one of the words that we hear, the buzzwords, but what does it really mean?
Well, very simply, but I think it means that we look at what's in it for me, and me is the member, me is the customer, me is the audience that we're trying to engage with, that we're trying to bring into our communities. So what's in it for me? What do I get from your association? How can I find the content that I want, the way of engaging? Younger people engage differently from older people. It's more about that customized experience and personalized experience that we as associations need to help our members and our customers find. So simply put, I would say, think about the relationship, think about your member, think about your customer, and ensure that you're always trying to meet them. It's not about what we as associations want. It's what our audience, our community wants from us. What's in it for me?
You speak about a community, customer, and not just member. How can you differentiate? What is the difference in focus, in a sense?
Well, associations are designed as member bodies, right? So we set up an association and we ask people to join our associations as members, and that's a contract. They pay a membership fee, and that allows them to have some kind of ownership of the association. They become almost like a shareholder of the association. But many people, individuals and companies, want to engage with associations without that contract of membership. They attend our meetings, they join the virtual experiences and conferences that we've been organizing for the last 18 months. So they dip in, they attend a meeting, they read a publication, they purchase a product, but they don't want that contract of membership. That's what I call a customer. And to me, the members and the customers are equally important, because these people are spending money with our associations. They just don't want necessarily to become a volunteer leader or get involved in a chapter or maybe contribute to a committee, but they value the association. And I put community as the overall body that brings together members and customers, and of course other stakeholders like sponsors, industry partners, alliances. So that's why I always talk about members and customers.
Okay, you had mentioned to me a formal description of engagement as well. We'd spoken about that. Could you dive into that a bit as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And if our team could bring up the slide, I will put what we've defined at MCI, a formal definition of engagement. And this definition is available to you if you either go and look at our FAST, which is Future-Proof Association Strategic Transformation Program, which we actually created a year ago to try and help associations deal with all of the changes that were coming about because of the COVID pandemic. So we created this program, and one of the white papers in that program is called "What Does Engagement Really Mean?" It's available for download on our website, our association-specific website. So we have the URL showing, and anybody who's listening can go to that URL and download this white paper. And this is a slightly more formal way of what I was saying when I talked about what's in it for me. So member and customer engagement is defined by the ongoing interaction between a member or customer and an organization, association, in exchange for meaningful value. And that value is defined by the member or the customer. So it's about this emotional connection. I did say I wanted to bring warmth to you this morning. It's about emotional connection between a member or customer and a brand. In your case, that's the association. And of course, you know, the more engaged a member or a customer is, the more they will buy from your association, the more they will promote, the more they will become, you know, loyal and more like an ambassador. So think about ongoing interaction and emotional connection. What's in it for me?
Okay, thanks, Nikki. When we speak then a bit more about engagement, are there any success criteria so that an association can actually measure how well they're doing? Because I think often, specifically in Latin America, we may measure by, we have members that have been with us for 30 years, so we are very successful. Are there other ways of measuring that you would recommend associations to start using?
Yeah, so maybe Virginia can bring up the slide actually, because I can talk a little bit about this. We've defined measurement criteria to actually be able to give a kind of engagement score. Some of you may have heard about the Net Promoter Score, the NPS, which is really evaluating how a company or a brand engages with its customers and how successful that is. This is a similar approach towards associations. So we have 3 criteria. And we believe that engagement is really about the strength of the relationship. I've just been talking about that in my definition, the strength of the relationship between the member or customer and the association. And we measure that strength of relationship on 3 criteria. The benefit that the association provides to the member. And I should say, Gina, that this is seen. When we measure it from the member or the customer's perspective. It's not us saying our association is giving our members good benefits or that we perform very well. It's what our members and customers are saying about us. So how do they perceive the benefit? Are they getting value from their time, money, effort, engagement spent with the association? Preference is another measurement. How much do they prefer our association than other providers of education or virtual networking or certification or education through meetings or trade standards? How much do they prefer us? Are we their #1 choice? And probably the most important in all this is, how do they evaluate our performance? Are we doing what we say we will do? Are we delivering value? Are we delivering good programs? Are we delivering the network, the mission that we stand for? So you put those three together, and those three criteria really represent how we can judge the relationship strength. And the relationship strength is really that engagement score. We have a methodology that then, gives an association a score between -50, which is obviously a very weak score, up to an incredibly strong one of 150. And we've found over the years that most associations are somewhere in this moderate color here, sort of, somewhere between 70, 80. I haven't met one yet that comes in strong or very strong. So I think there's a lot of work for all of us to do when it comes to engaging. And this health situation we're in now is a great opportunity for us to do that better.
Nikki, you mentioned that you've only seen those that are around this 70 and not that those are over 100. I think for some associations that are listening in, that might be encouraging and saying, okay, I know we have a way to go, let's get in. But in that score that you mentioned, is that also well-renowned international societies? Because I know typically the Brazilian, the LATAM societies look towards their European and American counterparts as very well established and would expect them to have a high engagement. Can you give some insight in that sense?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I am actually talking about primarily North American associations here, with an average score of somewhere around about 96, 97, 98. And remember, this is not 98 out of 100. This is not 98% I'm talking about. This is the score we're looking at here. So this is approximately half of, 75 would be half of the 150. It starts at -50. It's very similar to the NPS. And so we started this engagement model actually in 2016, I believe, and we're hoping to launch it again this year with a much broader association audience around the world, because we really believe right now the focus is on engagement. In 2016, most people think engagement, what are they talking about? So now it's the buzzword. Everybody is concerned because we feel that we're not engaging because we're distant. But actually, we're probably engaging more.
And Nikki, you mentioned the score and the initiative that is being done in different parts of the world. We've internally mentioned to you our interest to also offer this to associations in Brazil and Latin America. Is there any commitment that you can make from your side to make this available in the region as well?
Well, I would kind of say watch this space. We are developing it right now. We hope to be able to go live with that this year. We do hope that in, let's say, Q4, that we're able to interest our clients and other interested associations to join this index. The key is the associations being willing to do it, because it is their members and customers that are going to give the answer, not us and not the association staff or professionals. So it requires the associations to want to engage with us and to want to have this information, such that we can work with them to, have a very simple survey that their members and customers respond to. So that's what we're making sure that we provide you, all of you listening, with a very strong reason as to why it's a simple task for you to ask your members and customers to give their opinion, and then we will be able to give you a score and some best practices. So it's very live at the moment, hoping that we'll be able to do this year. And yes, we can, if there are enough associations in Brazil, so if the response to this is very positive and we have a cohort, we can do it in Portuguese, obviously, and then we can do some best practices amongst Brazilian associations or other Latin American associations, and then be able to also show that benchmark with European and American associations. The idea is that it's open to everybody.
Excellent. So Virginia, the community manager, a direct request to you to keep everyone abreast of what's happening there, because I think it would be great to have actual benchmark with national and regional associations and not just compare with the international one. So thank you for that. Engagement, digital transformation. How has the current reality and the digital transformation impacted engagement in your view?
Well, I think, you know, what we're doing here now has transformed the way that many associations have facilitated that relationship strength, have facilitated the engagement with members and customers. The associations that have been successful in this last 18 months and have kept high value for their member community and high engagement are the ones that have really embraced technology to facilitate this communication. They've organized webinars, they've organized fireside chats or coffee mornings, or just, you know, instantaneous social networking over a breakfast at 7:30. They've used the technology to bring the community together. And that's why I'm saying online and offline must go hand in glove, must go together in the future. We cannot just go back to the face-to-face, because this is extremely valuable. And it's allowed so much more. I was with a global client of ours last week. I've been doing sessions with them all around the world. Started in Asia Pacific, and then I did one in Europe, and last week it was with the Americas. And everybody was saying, because the association has facilitated these kind of networking and best practice sharing, knowledge sharing, virtual meetings, they've had more value in the last year than they had in the previous year. So the technology, as I said before, the technology is the tool. We need to do the thinking, we need to have the strategy and use the best of technology. But there is a lot of technology that will help us also automate, provide some of that personalization I was talking about, artificial intelligence, etc. So yes, it's all linked to digital transformation technology.
You spoke about a lot about the value as well. In that sense, if we look at member retention, because that is a topic that a lot of the associations in Brazil, in Latin America, frankly speaking, around the world struggle with. So what do you see as a direct link between engagement and member retention?
Well, very simply put, the more engaged, the more active, the more happy, the more relevant the member or the customer feels, the association is, the more likely they are to renew their membership. So engagement really helps retention. And retention is very much linked, of course, to membership. But as I said before, we have every association in the world that we work with, it doesn't matter what nationality, whether they're international, American, European, Italian, Brazilian, Spanish, Singapore, Brazil, it doesn't matter what, they have had more participants virtually in virtual learning experiences than they ever had in their face-to-face. So also retaining those participants, those customers, is part of retention. I know it doesn't bring in the same numbers and metrics that you mentioned before, because a lot of associations continue to measure themselves only on the number of members, and they only focus on retaining members. but you retain those customers, you retain their revenues. So the more engaged, the more you will retain. It goes hand in glove. And maybe, Gina, we can ask Virginia to bring up a slide, actually, because as part of our whole methodology around engagement and the engagement score that I was talking about earlier on, we formalized, and this is used in marketing with, you know, brands and the way that they engage with customers a lot, but we've turned this into association language, that really there are 5 levels of engagement. And companies have always envied us. They've always envied associations because we have members, and members pay every year. But that doesn't necessarily mean they're loyal or engaged. If you look at the passive member, they have a membership and they pay every year, but they're not engaged. They're not getting very much value. They're not promoting the association. It's become a habit. They're not participating. They're really, you know, they represent a statistic to us and a little bit of money. We want to bring them up this engagement scale. We want them to become the multipliers. We want them to be our ambassadors. Like if there's any volunteer leaders and board members and committee members in this call, you know, those are the best multipliers for every association. They're the people that have worked their way up. They're the ones that have been loyal. They started by being active. And then, you know, the more active you are, the more loyal you are, and the more you multiply. And you act as an ambassador. So really, there are these 5 levels, and the scores you're seeing there is you know, we discovered the average association, you know, was having sort of middle of the road levels of engagement. You know, either active or loyal members, but very, very low. You see the 2 extremes. You know, 10% on just the members that pay their money, and only 8% that were really strong ambassadors. So that's the path we want to try and take our members and our customers on, and take them through this journey.
Nikki, we spoke about the target audience and the segmenting, etc. If we look at another key challenge that associations are having, which is attracting the younger generation and keeping them involved, you know, how can we turn them from open to active up until multipliers? How would you recommend doing that?
Yeah, I think the multi-generational engagement challenge that associations face today is very real, because a lot of associations are led by boards of my age plus. And we grew up in a world that wasn't virtual, that wasn't connected. We didn't have mobile phones. We had to go to face-to-face meetings to share knowledge. We had to read print journals. But the people we're trying to attract into our associations today have never known anything else. They are digitally connected. There are no boundaries. They pick up their phone. The information is here. They don't talk, they chat. So we need to design our experience and our value and the way we want to engage very much with that younger audience, those 20 to 30-year-olds, in mind. So how do you involve them more? First of all, bring them into the decision-making positions. Have younger members in committees. Have younger members in the board. Have an honorary, you know, it might not be somebody that perhaps you think should vote, but why not? It's their future. The future of associations belongs to the younger people, not to my age plus. So I think that's a dichotomy, and it's many boards are struggling with that. So bring the voice in, understand how they want to engage. They don't necessarily want to go to a face-to-face meeting. They're very happy doing what we're doing here. So remember that each one of these segments and different generations need segmented strategy. That's what goes back to how they define their value. It's what's in it for me. Me at 20 is a very different me from 60.
Thanks, Nikki. I saw in the chat box that we have a question coming in, so I'd like to invite Luis Cosamilan. He's the executive director of the Brazilian Society of Cardiology, to open his microphone and pose his question. Luis, welcome.
Thank you, Gina, and thank you, Nikki, for your insights and your presentation. We've been hearing a lot about hybrid events lately, and what's your view of what a hybrid event actually means? And what parts of the in-person experience are actually transferable to the hybrid events? And how do you build that experience in which both audiences, both virtual and in-person, are actually engaged?
A very good question. So hybrid obviously means you're combining two worlds. You're combining that face-to-face physical meeting with a virtual experience. And that's why I'm saying the redesign of the face-to-face meeting is so important. If you were to continue to run your meeting only with a physical audience in mind, it's not going to be relevant to the virtual. So in thinking about hybrid, we are thinking about two experiences and two different levels of engagement. People often ask us, doesn't that make it, twice as expensive? It's twice as much work. Yes, it is twice as much work. You have to think about the physical and you have to think about the online experience, and they are different. So don't think that all of your face-to-face meeting is going to translate into a live virtual. Recording the content, it's available later on demand. The virtual participants will join certain sessions that are being streamed, and not necessarily all of them. You may have virtual participants that have a virtual breakout in a platform like Zoom, while you're doing a physical breakout in round tables in your meeting, a more intimate experience in that face-to-face, which is being replicated, but with a different technology. So it's very important to consider both elements and not try to blindly say, we're going to do this face-to-face meeting like this, and ignore what might be happening on the virtual side, but don't try to make everything available to everybody at the same time.
Does that answer your question, Luis?
Yes, thank you very much, Nikki.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I saw a question coming in my private chat from Renata. Renata, do you want to pose your question? And if there's any others, I can possibly put in one additional question. Renata, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Nikki, thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering if you could share with us some successful stories about engagement on associations, something you have seen in this past year.
Yeah, I can share a story with you of one of our global associations that we actually run out of our UK office. It's a global federation, so obviously in Latin America you have a lot of regional federations. In Brazil you have a lot of federations with smaller what you might call an apex organization. So the members of these federations are other associations. They're either national or of a theme. So this was a global federation that 2 years ago, so we're talking pre-COVID, had said to us, we want, as the global organization, to organize a conference. We need to bring our community, our global community together around an event. And we said to them, but you don't have a relationship with your global community. There's no engagement. The members of the member associations are not linked to you. So how can you design a meeting for them, a conference, when you don't know what their pain points are, what their interests are? And we said, the first thing you need to do is build that relationship strength I was talking about before with these individuals, not the secretary generals of the member associations, but the individuals, their members, the hundreds of thousands. So we created, before COVID, an online community so that the individuals from the associations could sign into the community, they could sign into special interest groups, they could have virtual engagement and share knowledge and best practices around very structured forums and topics. And we were very fortunate to have launched this before COVID, because when COVID hit, the platform was there, the online community was there, members and individuals were starting to engage, and it has been the backbone of this association for the last 18 months. And all of the content, all of the pain points, we as staff, we monitor the discussions, we help to stimulate them, but we're able to draw out what are the pain points. We now know exactly when we're able to go back to a physical meeting of some smaller description next year, maybe, what kind of topics are interesting to address physically in the face-to-face meeting, and what topics can be done very nicely in a monthly webinar or through these discussion forums. So that's what I meant when I talked earlier about 365 engagement and the combining of online and offline. For me, this is absolutely fundamental to the way we take our associations forward.
Renata, any further follow-up, or did this help you with your requests?
Yes, thank you so much. It was great.
Perfect. I saw that Aline is online with us, Aline of the ABHH. I don't want to put you on the spot, but as Renata was speaking about or asking about best practices, I think you guys have done a great job as well during the pandemic, working a lot with government and guidelines, etc., which I believe increased engagement a lot for your society. Would you like to share maybe 1 or 2 lines on what you've done and how it has positively impacted in such a difficult time?
Hi, Gina. Hi, for all. Hi, Nikki. Congratulations for your presentation. It's a good challenge, you know. And Nikki, I have a question for you. How do you see associations current about diversity and inclusion?
Yes, well, that's very topical, isn't it? And if you take the umbrella subject of engagement, diversity, equality, and really inclusion, of course, fit very nicely under that, that topic of engagement. I think it's something that every association is considering. The world today, and you know, with social media, we cannot forget our responsibility as association leaders for creating a trustworthy, a trustful environment. Our members, our customers, the community that turn to us need to know they're going to get, you know, trusted advice, that it's impartial, that everybody is welcome. So it goes back a little bit to, you know, I referred to the younger generation, you know, as a segment. So it's important for every association to identify different segments for communication, for marketing, for contact, for engagement. It isn't about one approach, one method, one way for everybody. So if you are engaging well with your target audience, you will probably deliver your promise, your commitment to bringing in diverse and different and generationally different and sexually orientated different people, because you are proactively targeting messaging also to invite those people in. And it's what a lot of associations have done is created, as we always do in associations, we create committees, right? But maybe better to have a task force or several. The difference between a committee and a task force is something that can start and stop, 2 months. Committee is a standing, you know, 12-month engagement. It's younger people, for example, don't want to get involved for 12 months. If you have a task force on diversity, put out a call amongst your members. Who would like to join this task force? Here is the task. This is what we want you to do. It's a 2-month assignment. We want this, 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 and this. You will be working together virtually, you know, with your recommendations. And in 2 months' time, we're going to take that to the board. So you involve immediately those who are interested, who are passionate about it. But you don't expect them to give their time endlessly, you know, for 12 months. So I think, again, this comes back to engagement. More and more of these prompt, focused task forces that allow people to come in, to give what they're passionate about, to give their knowledge and their time, and then it shuts down. And then the next one comes up, and it's a very, very good way of involving people that don't want to get involved in this whole sort of committee 12 months of the year structure.
Okay, thanks, Nikki, for that insight. Just slowly wrapping up, some final questions to you, but first of all, I think there's so much interest in this topic we've seen for this session, but also people mentioning that they were not able to participate and would like to see a follow-up, and there's so much information that we can dive into. So maybe we can look at in August at our next date, I believe it's the 17th of August, do a deeper dive into this. But as a key takeaway, associations that after your talk or in general were thinking of doing more in engagement, developing in that score, what would your recommendation be in how to get started or how to improve? Practically, how do they do that?
Yeah, well, one of the areas that I think a lot of associations overlook is their data. So starting with what data do you have? You know, and again, this is not just about members. It's about all these people that have engaged with you over time, have attended a conference, have participated in a virtual meeting, maybe by your journal. So starting with your data and segmenting so that there is a very clear strategy of how you want to go about engaging your different segments, even within your membership. You know, there are different segments. There's the old, loyal, they've been around for years, you know, they're gray-haired like me, and they're going to stay there, right? And then there's the members that have joined for a year. They are very important to have a different campaign and a different strategy as to how you keep them engaged. Sometimes they join because we gave them free membership if they attended and paid for a conference. Those are the most vulnerable. Those are the ones that we're likely to lose because they didn't choose to engage. They chose to go to a conference. We gave them membership. So a strategy on engaging and special effort, reminding them of the value, helping them find content. Now here I'm talking about doing this manually because I'm saying start with your data, look at different segments, but technology and automation helps us as associations not to have to do this manually. So whether we like it or not, we are in an age of digital transformation, and you know, technology and intelligent technologies, automation, artificial intelligence is very much part of how we create a more engaging environment. So start with the data and then take it from there.
Thanks for mentioning data. I think that is very important indeed. And actually, we got a question here that was sent to me direct, asking, in addition to the NPS, you mentioned the engagement score, you spoke about the engagement models. Are there any other scores that you feel are important for associations to accompany?
I think really, you know, the NPS is one that's used a lot, but I think it's also got slightly overused. And the reason why I'm saying that, and feel free to disagree with me, but just about every transaction we have these days, and we all do a lot online, you instantly get a message saying, can you please rate, you know, what your experience, was it blah, 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 blah. And it's so transactional. And in our world, the relationship is not transactional. It's about quality. It's about relationship. And I think in a way, the companies desire to get this constant feedback. You engage with somebody in customer service at an airline. The minute you put down the phone, or even if you're on the automatic menu, they say, would you like to answer our survey? And then you get asked these questions. And I think it's undervalued that. So we used to put sometimes NPS, you know, questions into into surveys, but be careful how you use that. You know, it has to be part of something bigger, which is why, for example, those 3 questions we have around benefits and preference and performance, they are part of sort of 10 key questions that tell us more about what the member or the customer wants. It's not just those 3 questions. And it's really important that we keep that sense of it. We are not in a transactional business. We're in a very much in a human-centric business, and technology can help us, but we mustn't lose sight of the relationship and making sure that there is always a human somewhere that can be reached.
Thanks. Speaking about human centricity, to close off, who inspires you?
Well, lots of people. I think there are some amazing people around the world, but I guess if I was to sort of, first of all, just say in general, I always find, you know, stories you hear of entrepreneurs or leaders or athletes or doctors or whoever it is that's reached a certain position in their chosen path, and they could be 20, they could be 50. I'm always inspired when I hear the stories of how difficult, in many cases, those people's lives were as children. And the reason why they probably succeeded is because they had barriers to overcome. They had challenges. They had working parents or no parents, or they grew up in a war zone or whatever it is. And I was reminded of that characteristic just this weekend, actually, because you probably all gathered, if you listened to my voice, that I was actually born and bred in Britain, and I am English, but I haven't lived there for 40 years. And I grew up with Wimbledon tennis. And I was a great tennis player as a child myself. And I went to Wimbledon every year. And every year I watch Wimbledon on whichever way I can, television, streaming or whatever. And I was reminded of that characteristic and that strength in watching Novak Djokovic win his 20th Grand Slam title. You know, he's very focused. He constantly aspires to change, to evolve. He has a new tennis coach. He tries new techniques. He keeps himself very fit. He's 34 or 5, I don't know, something like that. And, you know, he started in Serbia in the war. He had no money. His parents couldn't help him. He had this dream and his focus, but this willingness to change and evolve his game. Because for exactly what I was talking about, he's 34. He's got young kids of 20 coming in. They're fitter, they're agile, they've got a new technique. He's had to adjust his technique. I don't know how many times in his career. And several other athletes before him and after him. So I think this focus that he has, and I was watching him play, and you know, the commentators, of course, would draw your attention to this. You know, he changed tactics 5, 6, 7, 8 times when he was facing, you know, an opponent that was stronger than him, who was outwitting him. He changed his tactic. He adapted his style. He pulled something else out. And I just think this focus, this willingness to embrace change, all these people that have been successful in their careers or as entrepreneurs or athletes, to me, they're amazing.
Thanks, Nikki. I wanted to close off already, but I saw a question coming in. I want to be respectful as well. Juan Rubio, do you want to open your microphone? While he does it, but I loved your choice of who inspires you, specifically the explanation, because I think it's so relevant to associations as well, right? They've had to reinvent themselves over this last year. So thanks for that contribution. Juan,
and need to continue reinventing themselves, Gina. It's the path hasn't stopped.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you. My question is, and say hello to our distinguished speaker today. We have met three months ago.
Ah.
Do you remember me?
Yes. Okay.
If we have the chance to do it digitally, event organizers need to change the mindset of business matchmaking. Do you think that the effort to maintain face-to-face experiences is worthless?
No. Face-to-face is it's physical, human interaction. We are made for that. Okay, we're not animals. We are human beings, and we need physical interaction. So it's not going to go away. It's just we've been stopped in our ways of behaving, and we have to do what Djokovic does. You know, you have to go find a new way to serve the ball. You've got to find a new way to move around the court. We need to have new ways of engaging in those face-to-face experiences, because they can't be the same. But absolutely, everybody is craving today to get back to face-to-face. It's the only thing people talk about. When I can do this, when we, you know, so it's never going to go away, and it's absolutely fundamental to the human, the human population. So no, we are in a business, all of us, if we're to do with associations, of engaging, face-to-face educational events or trade shows. They need to be part of our portfolio. All I'm saying is they can't be the only part, as they were with some associations before COVID came along.
Nikki, I think the last element, sorry, Juan, he just thanked you. Nikki, the last part of your reply, I think is so relevant to the region, because I think also in the questions that came up, you saw it's a lot related to meetings. And for many, even the well-established associations in the region, Brazil, other Latin American countries, the meeting has been a great driver for them and the key income generator. So you very well positioned that it's one element of a portfolio. And can you mention maybe as a close-up of this, how you see associations working on their engagement on one side, and also in that sense helping to diversify from the meeting as a key driver for them? And maybe you can detail that, and then we can take it further into the August session in more in-depth detail.
Okay, I'll just give a fairly superficial response to that right now, Gina. So yes, it's Latin American associations, Middle Eastern associations, Asia Pacific associations, even some of the European associations tend to rely on this face-to-face 2-day, 3-day annual conference, congress, expo, etc. So you're not alone in your region. It's very prevalent of a lot of smaller associations as well. What this opportunity, what COVID has presented as an opportunity, is that we've had to go into virtual and digital experiences, learning experiences, meetings, whatever you want to call them, but I prefer to call them learning experiences because they are very different from a face-to-face meeting. And in doing so, we've captured and we have a lot of digital content. So now it's thinking about a strategy of what can you do with that digital content? How can you link it? I think you mentioned when you brought Aline in that she'd been working on guidelines. You know, how do you create a portfolio of connected content in your association? So it's not just that face-to-face, but if you are holding it face-to-face, you also capture that content. That content is available online, on demand. It can be for a price. How does that content link to the journal? Can you bundle something from a journal article and an abstract? This is the segmentation, and a lot of artificial intelligence will help you do this. But this also goes back to, Aline was talking about guidelines. So if there's a guideline, on a certain way of doing something which your association is producing, what are all the other assets that you've got from abstracts, from captured content, from journal articles that can support that guideline, that can be sold and bundled as a package? So you're starting to create more assets from what you've got. It's a little bit of repurposing. That's the place to start. But digital education is a great opportunity. Don't throw it away, because we've been given it for an happy reason, but we've been given it. It's transformed the way we're doing it. Don't throw it away. It's very precious.
So Nikki, with that, thank you so much for your participation today. It was excellent. Repeating for everyone, August 17th, we'll be back and do a deeper dive into this topic of engagement. Thank you all and have a great day. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Obrigado.